Hi, everyone, and welcome back to After the Silence. I'm Olivia, and today we are talking about a type of grief that can feel especially lonely. It's called disenfranchised grief. This is grief that isn't always acknowledged, validated, or supported by others. It's the kind of grief that doesn't always get a name, and because of that, it often doesn't get space. Disenfranchised grief is what happens when you're grieving, but the world around you doesn't fully recognize it as grief. And because of that, you may feel like you have to carry it quietly. And I think what makes this kind of grief so heavy is that you're not just holding the loss, you're holding the silence around it. This can look like grieving an ex-partner, grieving a relationship that was never fully defined, a miscarriage or infertility, losing someone you had a complicated relationship with, even grieving a version of a life you thought you'd have, or a version of yourself that no longer exists. These are all real losses, but they don't always receive the same space or support. There's no casseroles. There's no check-ins. No one's asking how you're really doing weeks later. And sometimes not even permission to talk about it. And this kind of grief can feel especially isolating. You may also feel unseen in your grief. And for me, this has shown up in ways I didn't always recognize as grief at first. There have been moments in my life where something felt really significant to me, but it wasn't met in the same way on the outside. Where I was holding something heavy and the person I wanted to feel seen by didn't quite meet me there. I remember even recently moving through something that felt important, something that mattered to me, and realizing no one was really asking about it. No one was sitting with me on it. And there was this quiet moment where I thought, maybe this isn't a big deal, or maybe I'm making a bigger deal of it than it really is. That's usually my go-to. But underneath that, there was something deeper. There was hurt. There was disappointment. There was a sense of being alone in something that, frankly, it didn't feel small at all. And that's the thing about disenfranchised grief. It doesn't always come just from the loss itself. It can come from not being met in the loss. Sometimes the grief isn't about what happened. It's about realizing you're not being held the way you need. And to be honest, I really had to sit with that and remind myself. Just because it wasn't acknowledged by someone else doesn't mean it didn't matter. You might find yourself thinking, maybe it wasn't that serious, or maybe I should just be over this by now. Other people have it worse. So you minimize it. You tuck it away. You try to move on before your body is actually ready. But here's the truth. You shouldn't have to prove your pain for it to be real. If it mattered to you, it's worthy of being grieved. There are forms of grief that don't come with clear language, but are still deeply, deeply felt. And when grief isn't acknowledged externally, we often silence it internally. We tell ourselves it's not a big deal. It didn't count. It shouldn't hurt this much. But the thing is, your body doesn't lie. There's that book that's called Your Body Keeps Score. Your heart doesn't create pain for no reason. And part of the healing is allowing yourself to name it anyway, to sit with it without needing anyone to validate it first, to give yourself the permission you may not have received from others. You are allowed to grieve what others simply just don't understand. You're allowed to feel deeply, even if no one else sees it. And maybe for you, this looks like finally saying out loud, that mattered to me. Maybe it's even letting yourself feel something you've been pushing down, or giving yourself space that no one knew to offer. And if this is the kind of grief you're carrying, you don't have to carry it in silence anymore. Nothing you felt while listening to this was wrong. Till next time.